I was born in the lumber woods in northern Michigan.
In the Northern Peninsula?
Yeah. Are you familiar there? Near the Sioux,
Oh,
Pickford.
I lived in Iron River.
Oh, really? That's up north even further. And in a lumber camp. And there really wasn't much of a chance for school or, in my case, very practically no parental guidance or so on. Something like weeds.
Well, you gonna tell about your mom?
Well, she was had a great deal of faith. Is that what you mean?
Well, but that you think your dad married her because he felt sorry for her?
Yeah. Boy, all family secrets.
We won't tell.
Yeah. Well, my dad was married as a young man, and but the doctor gave him only 6 months to live. So he thought, well, he was very much in love, and so they decided to get married. And then I think the first year or so, his wife died in childbirth, and the baby died too. So then he was single for 15 years, bumming around the country. And I guess you'd call him a hobo. That's what he'd be called. Today, they don't really call them hobos, but maybe there really aren't too many. This is where they catch a ride on the train and maybe work here and there for their food and so on. And but then I guess he went to this farm, and mother was 36 years old, and I guess she was sort of the slave of the family, and so we felt sorry for her, and I don't feel very comfortable telling this story, but anyway, they got married, and I don't think it was...
But that camera is for the descendants, for your grandchildren.
Oh, dear.
What grandchildren?
Well, anyway...
Yeah, she has grandchildren.
Yeah, she has grandchildren.
So my mother, my mother's parents were very much against this marriage. We felt, and they set my mother out, and she couldn't go back. Well, now, my grandfather was quite well educated, held quite a position in the community, but and my father wasn't a provider at all. I think my grandparents felt that with any children that came into that marriage, they might be saddled with, so they really didn't want to have any contact with the family. But anyway, this was born in northern Michigan in the lumber camp, and as the timber is cleared in the lumber camps, then each of the camps move, and so there's very little chance for an opportunity for schooling or anything else. You sort of grow up with the trees. My father was a lumberjack, and he worked under lumber contractors called camp bosses. My father cut timber to be hauled by train or waterways to the paper mills or the lumber yards. The lumber camps, the structures included the cook shanty, men's shanty, stables for the working horses, and the camp store. And every camp consisted of about 30 men who lived in the men's shanty, and individual families who moved with the camps built temporary housing for themselves. Each time the lumber was cleared in an area, the camp moved on to the next campsite identified as Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, and so on. At age 8 and between age 8 and 9, I hung around the cook shanty. making myself useful, helping the cook and the family of the camp contractor or boss. I did washing. I did the washing and the ironing and dishes.
How was that washing done?
Oh boy, I guess I told that one. Well, I had to wash all the clothes on the board, and then we had a washing machine that you run by hand. Washed them, and then put them on the stove to boil, and then put them through the wringer and rinsed them twice, and I had to carry all that water. It was really, and up in northern Michigan, those clothes froze on the line real stiff, and they had to freeze dry. And let's see here. Anyway, I did the dishes 3 times a day for around 30 men and the family of the camp boss, because the family of the camp boss ate in the mess dining room too. And I worked in the camp store. Each camp consists of a camp store. Exercised the large workhorses, carried water, cleaned the men's shanty, and helped the camp cook. For this, I hoped to receive food, maybe some clothes, and to feel as though I belonged. I guess I proved my worth to the camp contractor, Sam Ratliff, and wife Sarah, who became Aunt Sarah and Uncle Sam to me. And they had a daughter also, Luella, who was a paraplegic. And she was 18 at the time that I went to live with them. I was 9 then. Aunt Sarah and Luella also, a boy named Dallas, age 11, whom the family had befriended, lived in the town of Pellston during the school year, so Luella could finish high school. Dallas and I also could go to school. And I had proved to Aunt Sarah I could work, so I had a full schedule the year round. I started school in Pellston at age 9 in the 4th grade, but I was out of school every Monday to do the washing and a half a day every Tuesday for ironing. I pulled Luella back and forth to school each day in a wagon, and during the winter I used a sled. We went back home every day for lunch and for me to wash the dishes from lunch before pulling Luella back to school. Luella was good to me, and I was favored over Dallas as far as Luella was concerned. Dallas was Aunt Sarah's favorite, and Aunt Sarah was the boss. She really ruled with an iron hand, I'll tell you. Dallas and I were in the same grade in school, and he was 2 years older than myself, and he went to school 5 days a week. He got better grades than I, even though I really worked hard and I always felt so embarrassed that I had a real difficult time. And you know, I never realized until not too long ago that he was 2 years older and he went to school 5 days instead of 3.5. And it just amazed me when I realized that I shouldn't have really expected to have any grades at all. I had spent, and I'm not clear on, because I'm sure I never completed a full year in the earlier grades at home. I think I spent a little time in the 1st grade and a little time in the 2nd, and that was all prior to entering the 4th grade at the age of 9. I'm not clear. Anyway, I remember at a very early age trying to read the Bible by lamplight, and in the early years, and thinking, and I still know what I was thinking when I was reading that Bible when I was so young, and I thought, and it was sort of a negative thinking. I thought, my goodness, God expects us to be praised a lot. You know, because you read so much that He's a jealous God, and to me it struck me that way at the time. The summer months over my 5 years with the Ratliffs we spent in the lumber camp. When Luella finished high school, we moved to the lumber camp for the year round. The boss of a camp always had better living conditions in that his home was built better and his family was ate in the cook shanty with camp cooks, preparing meals that were a little better than the lumberjacks' meals. However, when we moved back after Luella graduated, I no longer lived with the family, but I slept in the dining hall of the cook shanty, and only a partition and a thin door separating me from the men's shanty. Looking back, I am always thankful that nothing traumatic happened to me, and I believe that the Lord protected me. As a matter of fact, those men took up a collection one Christmas, and they purchased an entire outfit for me. High-top boots, red and green wool socks to turn over the top of the high-top boots, and corduroy breeches, and a navy blue wool jacket with red leather trimming. Oh, I can still remember that.
It was for a riding jacket, a riding outfit.
Yeah, but in the lumber camp, that was just a thing. I used to exercise the horses anyway by riding. That was quite an outfit, especially since Aunt Sarah had been buying my clothes at fire sales. In those days, they had fire sales instead of garage sales. I had been wearing a long coat, really it was down to my ankles, and whenever anyone passed, I'd pull it up. So I remember that. Anyway, and pointed-toed shoes that had also been bought at a fire sales that had been popular years before, and I wear my rubbers all day long to keep the kids from making fun of me. So back in the lumber camp, my work was a repeat of the former years. I did go to school for the 6th and 7th grade. I had all the chores to do before going to school in the morning, and on returning in the afternoon, the lunch dishes were saved for me. That was for the 30 men plus. I was up, well, what I remember most was they made bread twice a week in those great big aluminum kettles, and the cook never put water in there to soak, and that dough was like cement. And how I dreaded those days that to try to get them clean.
Are you going to tell about when you stepped on the nail?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's in there. And I was up at 5 in the morning, every morning, to serve breakfast. And the night before, after the dishes was done, the table was set for the morning breakfast. And everything was set. But then I got up at 5 to help cook and serve the men before they went to work. And the boss's family. I washed the dishes before I went, and oftentimes I had to carry water to fill the large water barrel. And I had 2 miles to walk back and forth to school. I still had the Mondays and Tuesday chores to do. That would be the washing and ironing. So I still only could go to school for 3.5 days. Aunt Sarah didn't believe in sickness of any kind, and I was not immune to illness. So I was afraid of her punishment or reaction to my illness, and I would pray for the Lord to spare me from sickness, just so that Aunt Sarah would not get mad and try to trick me out of pretending to be sick. She always thought that when I was sick, I was pretending to be sick. And sometimes I'd faint, and she thought it was pretending. You know, she always thought I was tricking her. I caught colds very easily and got croupy coughs and had fevers a lot. One time I ran a rusty spike through my foot and had to step on the board with the other foot to pull the nail out. This led to a bad infection in my leg that spread all the way up to my hip. It was very painful, and I had not had any tetanus shots. Doing dishes the next day, I fainted at the sink. Aunt Sarah was angry. Oh, she was angry. When I came to, I could hear her shouting, "I'll throw water in her face, I'll wake her up." And anyway, Uncle Sam was much more compassionate, and he came and he picked me up, set me in a chair. anyway, I have here Uncle Sam showed compassion and caring. He made hot flaxseed poultices and put on my foot to draw out, and he kept putting those on. And so eventually it did draw out the infection, but it was a bad one.
But and that time Llewellyn stood up for you.
No, that isn't the time she stood up.
Oh.
Although she did get me out of Aunt Sarah's sight at that time, because there was a lot of work to be done then. The camp was moving, and there was an awful lot of work to do. And I couldn't work. And so every time she looked at me, she was angry. So Uncle Sam and Luella they took me to another campsite so that I would be out of Aunt Sarah's sight. Between 11 and 12 years of age, I came near a mental collapse. This was when around 7 and 8 in the evening, I was doing dinner dishes and had gotten to the point of doing the large kettles. I suppose it probably was those red kettles. And let's see, to the point of doing the large kettles. When I couldn't control myself, I began to cry and shaking, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk for the life of me. I just all to pieces. And the cook sent for Aunt Sarah, and she came, and I remember one of the things she said, "I'll get a two-hander. I'll make her talk." And a two-hander is when you go out and cut a young sapling tree that it takes 2 hands to beat you with, And she says, "I'll make her talk." Well, see, she thought I was putting on. And Luella came in from the store and got between us and told her mother if she was to beat anyone, she could beat her. And Uncle Sam came in at that point, and I don't recall the exact happenings, but a couple of days later, Uncle Sam fired the cook, and he hired a man, a new one, who could handle all the chores that went along with the cooking. And I was assigned to the store to work with Luella in the camp store. Luella was driving a car with the hand and gas gears, gas and hand gears that paraplegics drive. And I would go with her to buy the supplies for the store and load and unload the supplies. Sometimes it involved 150 pounds of flour or sugar or whatever have you. Wait on the workers that come to the store, and most of the lumberjacks charged their supplies and paid on payday. From Luella, I learned to pad the books, if you know what those are. And that means you put more on their charge account than they actually bought. And to steal and lie when necessary to protect Luella from her mother, from Aunt Sarah. Luella had very poor morals. Many of the lumberjacks owed Luella more of their pay when they got paid. Let's see. Anyway, they owed her money. Most of their money when they got paid. And you can imagine, anyway, they did get in fights too over her. But anyway, she was real good to me. And I would do anything to cover up for Luella to Aunt Sarah. I would lie for her and I would cheat for her. And I really loved Luella. I really did. Well, I guess, she was good to me. The camp moved when I was in the 7th grade. Well, the last time I did steal, and I've always heard that you reach an age of accountability around 14. And I went to Gaylord to take the state exams. When you go to a country school, you have to go to the county seat to take exams to pass. And during lunch, I went to the dime store, 5 dime store. And I went around and I picked up this and that and the other thing. And when I got back to the camp, I didn't say anything to anybody. I hid that. Now, I could have told Luella, and she would have thought more of me, that I could have gotten away with that. I didn't say anything, but the next time I went to Gaylord, I took that back and I put everything right back. Nobody ever knew. And I believe firmly that you do reach an age of accountability. Maybe, before that, you're not accountable for your actions. You don't need anybody to tell you when you do reach that age, you know that it's wrong, and maybe you always did know it was wrong, but I don't know. Anyway, it's my belief.
Go ahead and have a drink.
My hands are shaking.
We'll edit that. Here, I'll hold
Okay.
your paper. You can use 2 hands.
Yeah, well, okay.
That's not Parkinson's disease.
Is she nervous?
No, that's
My
a
hand
French
shakes.
thing. A long day.
Yeah, my hand shakes now and then. The camp moved when I was in the 7th grade, and the new camp was across the road from a large farm. Uncle Sam bought the farm, and the produce helped the profit and put more money in the Rattlers bank account. During that time, I was in the 7th grade. Aunt Sarah informed me that I could not expect to continue going to school. After I finished the 7th grade, I was done. And I decided to run away and try and find work so that I could continue school. I had $5 which I had saved over some time, and I took the train to Petoskey and called on a cousin, hoping she would take me in. She could not, but she found a place for me, and it didn't work out, so I went home to my own folks at the lumber camp. I was there a year, and Luella wrote from Muskegon asking me to come and work for her in a store that Uncle Sam had bought for her. And she had married during that time to a man called Lloyd. 6 to 8 months with Luella in Muskegon. I stayed there 6 to 8 months, and this Lloyd, because of Lloyd, I really couldn't stay any longer. He was fresh, you know, and I was 15 years old. So I went to the police woman in Muskegon and asked her to find a place for me, and she did. But I was supposed to tell, when I went for the interview, I was supposed to tell them that I was 15 and I had to go to continuation school, but I was afraid they wouldn't give me a job, so I told them I was 18. Well, they hired me, and I didn't go to school. I was supposed to go. So eventually, well, the police lady kept track of me, and so then eventually the truant officer came out, and when this lady found out that I had to go to school, I think it was 2 days a week, then I couldn't work for them anymore. So the police lady made arrangements for me to stay at the city mission. And well, that was, there was the men lined up for in the soup line there that got there. That was during, it wasn't really during Depression though, it was in the late 20s, I think. And then I was staying upstairs at the city mission, and mostly older girls who was pregnant didn't have any place. So I had become friends with some of the business girls at the YW. So the president of the YW, was a woman, she said I could come over there and stay at the Y. And the police lady didn't feel that I should because I wouldn't be a paying guest, and she didn't think I should take advantage of that. But anyway, it did turn out that I did go and stay at the Y. And then when I went to continuation school, the superintendent and his wife was teaching there, and they took an interest in me, and so I went and lived with them. And went to continuation school, and it was a very nice place. They were very lovely people. And but then they was going to school out in the west someplace during the summer, and I would have to find a place during the summer to stay, and then I could go back and stay with them full time and go to school full time in the fall. But in the meantime, my aunt from Ann Arbor had written and said I could come to Ann Arbor. And the police lady felt that it would... Yeah, Aunt Minnie. The police lady felt that it would be better for me if I was someplace where I had a relative. So the city of Muskegon paid my way to Ann Arbor. And I did live with Aunt Minnie until, well, she found a job for me. And that was she didn't feel that she wanted to support me and send me to school, although she did have the money. But anyway, so then I did domestic work. And where should I go from there?
Well, are you skipping the time when you said you were an experienced waitress?
Well, no, that's coming.
Oh, that's coming. Oh, okay.
Yeah, then yeah, I got a job in a laundry, and but then I became very ill. I had acute appendicitis. Matter of fact, I really was passing out. I couldn't stand up. I would pass out. I really right on the verge of the breaking, and no doctor, nobody would take me because nobody would sign for me, and I didn't have any money. And finally, my aunt called the Washington, I don't know, wherever she found out to call, where she could say, well, you've got to do this. You can't turn her away. And so they did do the surgery, and I was a long time recouping from that. So while I was, this girl I'd gotten acquainted with, she and I decided to go to Traverse City for the Cherry Festival. And while I was there, I got a job as a waitress. And I'd never been a waitress, but I went to the best restaurant in town. And I told him I was experienced. Well, I lasted one day. But the next restaurant I went to, I knew a little bit about it, and I was able to hold the job. So I worked there, and I got acquainted with the manager of the Butterfield Theaters there. And he was, well, let's say for the time, he was really quite affluent, you know. He had a mink farm, he had the acreage and was starting a mink farm, and he was a manager of, I think there was 2 theaters there at the time. And to me, it sounded like if I married him, I'd have security. Really, it sounded pretty good to me. So we even went and he got house plans. We was going to have a house built. You know, it was just a dream to me. Here we could have a house built, a mink farm, and I could go to every theater, every show I wanted to go to. So anyway, we did go and get our marriage license. Within 3 days, I was going to get married. And I just woke up one morning, it was around 7 o'clock, and I thought, if I stay here, I'm going to marry him. And I don't want to marry him. You know, he was all right. Gosh, he sure offered a lot. But so something told me I got up and I packed my suitcase. This is what Kathy wants me to tell, because it's really something. I walked out that front door. I didn't have any money. I didn't even have the money that I'd earned at the restaurant that week. And as I walked down the sidewalk, this car stopped. And he said, how far are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to Ann Arbor. He said, well, I'm going to Grand Rapids, but I don't have to make that trip around that way this time. I can go right on to Detroit. And so I could ride. And you know, he was in his early 50s. And you know that, he was right there. It just couldn't have been a coincidence. And he had a daughter about my age. He was a salesman, I think. And he wanted to buy my lunch on the way, and I wouldn't go in. Well, if I let him buy my lunch, I'm kind of putting myself under an obligation. But anyway, when we got to Brighton is only about 15 miles from Ann Arbor. He said, well, you will let me pay your bus fare from here, won't you? And so I did. It was only 50 cents. And he paid my bus fare onto Ann Arbor. And do you know, 2 weeks later, he came over to Ann Arbor to see how I was doing. Now, that's unbelievable, isn't it? But the Lord was just right there. And so anyway, that was a narrow escape. And I don't know how it worked out. Probably wouldn't have worked out well at all, but I don't think the Lord intended me to marry him. And so anyway, when I met the children's dad, I thought, well, he really isn't as ambitious as I'd like, but even if I have to work the rest of my life, I'm going to marry him anyway.
Love that.
Well, it turned out that I really didn't. He was more ambitious than I thought. Anyway, he always said that. I always prayed that the Lord would give us children that had His His mind and my ambition. And I don't know, I think He did. But anyway, where do I go from here? Oh yeah, then let me give you, well, I'm just going to hit the highlights. 10 years we were married without children. And, pardon me?
Oh yeah, I know what you're coming to.
Yeah, Wesley.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I know I was sitting in church on New Year's, and that happened to be Sunday.
I thought that was Easter.
No.
Oh.
New Year's.
Oh,
New
okay.
Year. And I'm sure that thinking about having a baby was certainly farther from my mind because I was listening to the sermon. But it was just like a voice said to me, I'm going to have a baby. And it was just as clear as could be. Well, when I went out the church and to the narthex, out through the narthex, I said to Ty, we're going to have a baby. But I added this year because he'd probably think I was absolutely crazy. We went over to Antoinette's for dinner that day, and I told her to. I was just so elated. And I told her
Antoinette,
to,
my dad's sister.
Yeah.
Antoinette.
And I said to her, because, really, we've been married 10 years, and it was news if I told somebody we were going to have a baby. So I told her, but I also added this year. But anyway, I was talking to Carmela, my niece, on the phone a couple weeks later, and I passed out. And then, 6 weeks later, I went to the doctor, and he said, well, I could expect the baby around the 23rd of September. And I said, if I actually conceived January 1st, when would this baby be born? And he said October 1st. And Wesley was born October 1st. So for so long I felt, he's going to be a minister or something because and to the Lord. But Wesley was not cut out. He wasn't a minister. But
he has a ministry.
Yeah, he has a ministry. Yeah. And Wesley was what you call a slow learner, and he didn't relate well to his peers, and he just couldn't handle himself around there, and so he missed a lot of school because he had brain surgery in the 6th grade, but after that he didn't have the problem. He was in the hospital a lot in traction for hip problem, and then he didn't miss any school after he had that brain surgery, and then, but I know he graduated high school with the lowest grades that anyone, probably they just pushed him through. And then he went to community college for a year and a half, and then he enlisted in the Navy for 4 years, in the Air Force for 4 years. And when he got out, he went to a state university in California. And at that time, he was one of the tops in his grade, graduated as a electrical engineer, and he's worked for Boeing ever since. And he's in aerospace design, and he's considered a key employee at Boeing. Now, isn't that and also, I want to say that because my sister is a Jehovah's Witness, and we used to have some pretty emotional discussions with her, and Wes is the type that would never say, well, unless he had proof positive of what he was saying, and the witnesses say, well, the Bible is translated wrong, from Greek to this, it should be this. So Wes decided to take coin Greek in college as a hobby. So he did. And so anyway, and then he did an in-depth study of the cults, and he become really proficient at it. He's been quite successful with the witnesses if he can catch them in time. And he's in Seattle now. He and the family live there. But churches of different denominations call on him to talk to their congregations to educate them on the cult, so that they won't be led into this. If they, I think that would be the answer to if people were more educated on what their beliefs and what.
Because that's how Aunt Georgia got into it. She came to our Lutheran pastor with these questions that he, didn't answer or couldn't answer, or he didn't.
He just showed anger, instead of going into detail. Although I don't know the witnesses, if they're too far along, they're not going to listen to you anyway. One time Wes said that he was thinking, if a witness would just show up now, I know that I could really make some headway. And lo and behold, somebody knocked on the door and there it was 2 witnesses.
Well, the knock was from a neighbor downstairs, but he poked his head out the door because he was listening, and they weren't home. But he says, come on up.
Yeah, and anyway, now when I was out there visiting, I don't know if it was last summer or this summer, there was 2 different occasions where he was asked, one time he was asked to go and talk to a young man in the hospital who had just started studying with the witnesses, and then there was someone else, another church, that a pastor come and ask him. So he's really serving the Lord in his way, in a need where there is a need. But anyway, and then my 3rd child, these are things that's happened in my lifetime. My 3rd child, Phyllis, I really felt that all along I felt that pregnancy wasn't right. And I had a very I still have a heart problem, but I had the heart problem then that was maybe more serious. I really felt that there was a good chance that I wouldn't live through that pregnancy. And then when I went to the hospital, she was 6 weeks premature. And I just thought, I had always said that I was ready to die any time the Lord would take me, but I hadn't really considered, I didn't really give it that much thought. I'm sure I wasn't that sincere when I said that, because when I thought that it could very well be that the Lord would take me, then I started thinking of my children, and I just couldn't think of anyone else. I could think of my husband marrying again and them having a stepmother, and then they'd have some kind of a life like I had, and I couldn't face. It was very much in depth, my feeling there. And then I had this experience with the Lord. For, I don't know whether it was seconds or minutes, that I wasn't breathing. Because when I came to, the doctor kept trying to get me to breathe. But anyway, during that time, I really, I feel I got a glimpse of heaven. It was just perfection. There was nothing, no language in this world that could describe it. And it was maybe, and I certainly didn't see the presence of the Lord, but you could feel the presence of the Lord. And I received the promise that regardless of whether he should take me or whether he shouldn't, all my children would be saved. I did receive that promise, and it's just as clear today as it was then. And whether I would be around or whether I wouldn't, it wasn't going to make the slightest bit of difference. But he did grant. Maybe he still has.
That's because you didn't have all your children by then.
No.
You had Kathy.
No. I didn't. I had 2, and then Phyllis was my 3rd. But anyway, and I feel that the Lord will keep that promise, and I feel that at certain times in my lifetime, well, maybe all the time, maybe I've had a real active guardian angel. Because I really feel the Lord has had a very real presence in my life.
Well, he says in Proverbs, or something, he will be a father to the fatherless. So by not having some real parents, God fulfilled that promise and stepped in.
Now, I'm sure that some of you people have had real experiences, and I don't feel that I'm the only one, but to me it's real personal. Haven't you had some real close experiences? Some of you?
Well, yeah, it happens all the time, and no, I wouldn't not mean that, but I mean on other nights we'll have like Rita and Betty and Barbara. They're gonna talk about you.
After this, we could call it.
Yeah, nobody would be interested, but I'd have to stay after her.
That's right.
To your mother.
Well, I didn't have the story quite straight. I always thought you only got to the 3rd grade, but
Well, I went to school.
probably that's
Probably
Well,
all
then
added up,
later-
going so little and
Yeah.
Later I took some courses at the community college. Well, life has been a whole learning experience, really. It was-
Yeah, that's why I say that Mom has been one of those Abe Lincoln kind of lives, where you learn a lot by the hard knocks method, and just by keeping your eyes open and doing reading on your own.
Yeah, everything is a learning experience, and the whole thing is, and I've heard the saying that the school of hard knocks never hurt anybody, and really you can use everything. Well, as a matter of fact, Scripture tells us that everything is for our, I think it's in the book of Romans, that everything happens for our good. And sometimes it's pretty hard to believe that.
Because we are seeing the tapestry from the bottom side, not from the top side.
Well, for 5 years, while I was in Florida, it was a line of least resistance to live in Florida rather than to move back to Michigan. And I thought, there's nothing I can get interested in. Absolutely nothing. What is my purpose, really? I have no purpose. I didn't want to interfere in my children's lives, and certainly they know I'm the type that if I'm around, I'm going to interfere. Talk about going out and living near Wesley, and he wants me to live away across town. and Phyllis, I got 3 real nice grandchildren there, but I don't think her husband would appreciate my being around too much. He was very, quite possessive. And now I'm talking a little bit about someday moving to Concord.
Or Canterbury.
For a while.
With her sugar shack.
Yeah.
Very.
There's 17 acres of sugar maple out there on that acreage.
Yes, and to
I
come
thought I'd
around
build a
full
sugar
circle.
Huh?
To come around full circle and
Get back to the trees.
Yeah. So then I met Walt after 5 years, and that was sort of a family in trouble. He had a paraplegic son. He was 34 years old now, and he had been sort of, I don't know whether you would call him really protected. He didn't, he was sort of a family servant. You could describe Rick more than maybe I can, because
he was like the butler of the house.
yeah.
He would cook the meals, clean the house, wait on the company.
The paraplegic?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And even today, his older sister, who's must be close to 40, brings him her laundry, and she's been married twice now.
But although he did all of these chores, he really couldn't be trusted outside in the world,
Oh.
I mean, so he never.
What it was good for.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, he gets
House.
out on the street and he really gets rather disoriented. He doesn't exactly know which direction is which, and
And so, tell about what you asked Walter about him. What what plans does Rick have? Like you're not gonna be around here all this while.
Yeah, well, gosh, I'd sit on the davenport and Rick would come with a glass of juice as soon as it got down that much. Why, he wanted to fill it up, and well, I really wouldn't even think of just doing my laundry, He just wanted to do everything, and whoever came to the house, he'd take over. He was the host, and but finally, I told him, Rick, I said, if I was the Queen of England, I'd probably appreciate this, but I don't appreciate it at all. And but he didn't take the hint.
Yes.
So finally, I didn't say anything to Walt or anybody, but I wasn't sure how they'd take it, but I went to some social agencies to see what there would be for Rick. And so then the handy bus, they have a handicap bus, would come and pick him up every day and take him down to a handicap house where they put him through a lot of tests, and he enjoyed getting out like that. He was gone every day. He took driver's lessons, driver's training. He did get his driver's license, but he really isn't able to drive. He doesn't function under stress. He has very good command of the English language, very good, and very good speller. Right now, he's holding a part-time job as a telephone salesman where they call, he goes to work, and there's a lot of telephones there. They call different parts of the country for benefits and things like that. And it's doing a lot for him. Gives him a purpose. And
Tell, before you did any or much of this work for Rick, you asked Walter about what plans, what future does Rick have after Walter's gone? And Walter, what did he say? He said, well, I figured when I go, I would take Rick with me.
yeah, that's right. That's what he said. It was a family in trouble, And Walt was drinking. And I don't know why I walked into it, but I'll tell you, the Lord has really been there. Walt has quit drinking entirely. He did quit drinking entirely more than 3 years ago. It was maybe, I really think that it was the Lord's plan. He had a 46-year marriage. I had almost a 40-year marriage. So these golden year marriages, I'll tell you, they're pretty hard to adjust to. It's a completely different way of life sometimes. Now, he's a retired colonel, so he's very militaristic. And I'm not militaristic. But he's mellowed. He's very frugal, and I think that I had kind of lost the value of the dollar.
I don't.
Oh, you don't think I did?
No. As a matter of fact, I think that, although you always talk about, well, especially me, living in the style to which I'm accustomed and that kind of thing, I think that you really taught us the value of the dollar. Dad was very
Loose.
Yeah, he was mellow about things, And I remember once he said to me, Linda, if you can't have fun with your money, in other words, he was, because he used to play cards a lot, and he'd say, when it gets to a point when it's more stressful and it's not fun anymore, then you better just put your money away and save it and just leave it there, you'll be happier. But, if you want to play with it, you got to have fun. If you're not having fun, put it away. And I know, you don't, it's a little different with you.
Yeah.
Yes, we heard many arguments. Like Mom saying, "Oh, you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip." Because we could get money from Dad all the time, but try to get some money from Mom, or when Mom would find out that we got some money from Dad, then we'd hear the stories.
Well, he was always the first to pick up a check, you know. Friends would go to, too much. And,
In your opinion.
Yes.
in my opinion.
But remember the time that you woke up in the morning and you found your bedroom carpeted with money?
Well, yeah, but I want to tell you that. See, he liked his poker parties. And he always knew that I frowned on him. And even though he won, perhaps, at least he said he did, more than the average. But anyway, and so when he won, and especially this time, he had the floor covered with greenbacks. Almost, I stepped out of bed and
And he said, see?
well, of course, he never told me when he lost a lot. And I imagine that anyone playing cards, they certainly had their unlucky streaks. Although these gamblers you see in the movies, they seem to have it made, don't they?
Yeah.
But I don't know why we're talking about cards when you were Baptist.
Don't wear pants and don't play cards.
Finding out more about ourselves than we do.
But I wasn't the only one who was lax.
Would anyone like more healthy stuff here? Because there certainly is coffee
I think the younger generation of Baptists, maybe they don't frown on cards maybe as much as they used to, huh? You think?
well,
They're
it certainly
depends
depends
on
on
which
where
you
I don't know if I ever told you, Mom, that when I went to Concordia Lutheran High School, and in my doctrine class, there was a loaded question asked. They said, how many of you play cards? And my hand went up. And then he said, and how many of you bet, make wagers? And my hand stayed up. Now, I said, well, you know, we used to just do it with pennies, but particularly slave hours. With the kids, we would bet slave hours. Well, I had to have counseling. Two times a week for almost a whole semester on gambling and playing cards. I mean, and that was in the Lutheran church. So, you know, and I had, you know, I look back at it, it's a cultural thing, you know. I mean, my dad was Italian, it was the same with wine, you know, and drinking. I mean, his father owned a vineyard and made wine in Italy. And you know, so it was a little difficult to adjust to those things, you know, and when you would encounter people who really felt that it was a sin, you know, and you just kind of stand back, and all your life you've never really thought of that as a sin, you know.
Well,
it was entertainment. And
yeah. Well, now your grandfather Cardone, he drank wine like water. But it was explained to me that in Italy the water is not pure.
Yes. You get sick, you get cholera, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
like in Mexico when you get Montezuma's revenge.
Oh, you're going to show us here.
Yeah. Some people here know about my window quilt. I started this window quilt because of, actually, what started it was a few years ago when you were here, and you said, you know, the curtains you have here, they just don't go with your decor. And I never thought of it before. I just knew they were thermal curtains. So, we got it at a garage sale. So, we wanted to make a thermal window quilt for back there because
Careful what you say this time.
solar stuff.
I never know what you'll do.
So we looked around for sheets that had the pattern that we wanted, because the solar components guy said the best thing to do to make your own is find a sheet, because then you don't have to sew any seams in it. So we were looking around for about 2 years and didn't ever find anything. So then I saw in a Family Circle magazine that somebody did a picture out of material. And it had perspective in it, so that things farther away were smaller and as you got closer and things larger. So I thought, well, I'll just solve my problem of the window quilting, and I'll try to make it look right, try to make it look real. And so this town has, when I get all the pieces out there, every person in the family, and that's 10, because 6 on my side and 4 on Bob's side, they have a business in this town, or an establishment. Okay.
Beautiful.
Now,
You have
whoops. Okay, now, this is the railroad station for Bob's dad. That's his hobby for a long, long time. And this is Bob's mom's flower shop. She's really got the green thumb. Yes, Camp Concordia. All of the kids went to Camp Concordia. And this is Linda's business here, Original Lithography, which is just like a printing business. Okay. Now, let's see. Here is my school. Linda and I worked out the name for this school to be the Wisdom Tree. I think wisdom is the most important thing to be sought. So, and then tree because of growing. Okay. Now, another name that lost out was ABC 1, 2, 3 testing. And there's the playground, and Debbie Coffer and I are going to tell Phil, we think teeter-totters have to be the next item.
Oh, dear.
Why? Were you afraid of teeter-totters?
Injury City.
Injury City.
Well, there's so
Speaking
many
from a
signs.
nurse's viewpoint, there won't be any jungle gyms there. The nurse has her say so.
Here's my sister.
Broken arm.
This is my sister Phyllis's restaurant. Her nickname was Super Sauce, and sometimes her name was Soup. So it's Soup's restaurant. There's the Super Sauce in the window. And she, as Linda pointed out to me, has been working with food all of her, adult life. Whether it's being a waitress or being a salad lady, or being a hostess.
Or a manager.
Yeah, a manager. Okay. Now, here's Wesley's church for his ministry with the Jehovah's Witnesses. See, the door's open. And I gave the church a drive-through. Or drive up. Yeah.
We hadn't decided on a name for the church, right?
No, and I don't know that I'm going to get one. Here's Bob's Fix-It Shop.
You get in trouble if you put Baptist on.
He wanted I asked him if he'd like a plane in his backyard. He said he would. So, that's his Fix-It Shop.
No
Bob's
Kubota?
Fix-It Shop. Well, I was going to have one there. I was going to have a little farm scene with the Kubota there, but and I just might add a tractor later. But this is something that my dad always wanted. I gave it to him, a truck farm. Selling the fruits and vegetables on the side of the road and growing your own.
Sowing vegetables. Look at
Okay, we'll pass that around.
Oh. Yes, she took extra care in gardening those vegetables.
I didn't know you really wanted a truck farm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why you went looking at the house on Hilltop, because it said in the ad 3 acres, turned out to be 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's the train coming into the station.
Oh,
Right in front of who always loved watching the trains go by and imagining what far-off places they're going to. Who was that?
Right.
Who was that?
Was that me?
Yes. See, you have the railroad track going up by your place, Headley and Cardone Properties. That's getting into the real estate business there.
Isn't that darling?
Very imaginative.
Now, Bob's brother is in the Navy, so there's his battleship. And he also, he wants to live in Maine, and he likes that down east accent so much that he practices, he works at it, and he tries to speak it. And he does. I mean, it's something that he wants to do, and so he's doing it. And I think, you know, it's good for the people in the world to speak that accent. So also, this is the shipyard that is down east. It's in the down east quadrant of my thing. Where's my little sign there? Here it is. There, shipyard, down east. And I still have to cut that out into the sign shape. Now, we have, this railroad track is going to, like it continuing through here, it's going to go through here and into the woods and disappear. Okay. What else is there? Here's a tree I like. Somebody gets to have it in their yard. And I've got some pines coming in over there behind the church. You know how we have those pines. Maybe that's 10. No. Oh yeah, the vegetable thing. That goes up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And who is the only person in,
It's Bob.
Dad is the treasurer.
His mom's.
Phyllis, Linda, Wesley.
everybody's there?
Huh. Well, it must be. Well, see, the things that I still have in here are more trees. So wherever they're needed, they will go. And I thought I might give Bob's mom some nursery stock in the backyard, and I might, you know, give her maybe a field or something like that, because I made that trouble to make her a field.
And I think you should see picnic tables out behind the church.
And also, the reason this still has the white in it is because I'm not done yet. Dad is the only one who's dead, okay? So on this quilt has no people on it. But since he is not here, I'm going to put him in there. And in one of his most often assumed positions, do you know what one of his favorite things to do was? Well, how I saw him a lot.
Hoeing? Or running his motor tiller?
No, we never saw him doing that.
No, that was an imagination.
Laying
What
in
did
the
he
lazy
really
boy.
do in the early evenings? Like before supper and after supper.
And on weekends.
Outside, he'd like to be outside.
Well, I'll tell you, the garden never looked like it was worked. It was all weeds.
Well, gee.
He moved that oleander in faithfully for 13, 15 years.
Yeah.
In and out, in for the winter and out for all the other seasons. Well, I'm going to cut out some of this printing to make it look like a newspaper. And he's going to be behind the newspaper there, waiting at the vegetable stand for customers.
Oh.
So I might see a little bald head, just a little bit of the bald part above the newspaper.
Real good.
Yeah.
And I said that
She
she should
creative like this.
She should put a boxer dog laying down at his feet.
Because Betsy isn't here anymore.
Well, my gosh, why haven't you got a boxer there in front of there at Linda's place?
Because what does the boxer have to do with the printing shop?
Well, he walks around there overseeing it. And he keeps the burgers out.
Well,
Very nice, Kathy.
Well, that is nice. Oh, that's so
That's gonna
nice.
fit your decor a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'll have to switch the wallpaper.
Those colors in it.
So this is a sheet? Yeah. What size? Well, it's a queen, but I only would have really needed to get a king. But he said a queen, but of course, who knows
You
what
need it
size
for that
people want.
window, don't you?
yeah.
Queen, I think.
Well, but Bob wants it to fit inside here. So because it's going to have, but then it would have to bend in. So he'd have to probably make something out here anyway. It's going to have hidden metal parts on the edges so that the magnets will make it keep the air flowing.
So I think it's probably good that you have extra margins on
Yeah.
the side that you
I have a lot
can
to
use
play with there.
for your hardware.
Yeah.
It's on the
Inside
right.
you'll see a little light turned on, a little Lipton light.
Well, that represents that you must work when you're not doing anything. These people that really can keep their hands busy. Linda keeps her hands busy when she's not. She made that.
moving chairs around. Huh? I'm pretty good at moving chairs around.
You are?
Yeah. Moving chairs around?
Oh, I thought I turned that off.
Oh, yeah.
You need to push the red button.
Is
Oh.
it?
You put it back on because she sat down to do
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah, I don't think I have turned it off now.
You just have to look in the window to see if the green light's on. No, the viewfinder.
Is that a video here? And she kind of couldn't keep track of a lot of things. Right? What's the story about her cupboards?
I don't know.
Well, I think, you
That's
know,
okay.
Mom,
No, I
you
just-
never really did
okay.
have parents. From the
Yeah,
moment
right.
you were born,
Right.
you were on your own.
Right.
And that is the real truth. From
Yeah.
the very moment that you were born,
Yeah.
God had to be looking out after
Right.
you, because even your mother didn't know how to take care of you when you were born.
Yeah, well, sometimes I could almost say that the Lord must have dropped food right down from heaven, really. All we had was a cow, I know, very early age. And so many times you had hasty pudding to eat, just flour and water, you know. But anyway, I guess my dad come home, I was probably 5 or 6. But anyway, he was broke. He used to drink and gamble a lot. And he took that cow and he sold it. And that was the only thing we had. And I don't know what we did after that. Maybe that's when we had flour and water. I don't know. But even so, we had a lot. I could say that I don't know if you'd call it love, but I really cared for my father and my mother. I guess I was always sort of ashamed to bring, sort of ashamed of her, and I shouldn't. She had, maybe it was through her that I had 2 sisters. Maybe it was through her that we had in the knowledge and faith of God. But my dad has always said he read the Bible through 5 times. He was a great reader. He read a lot. He had faith. He always said from our earliest age that he believed that if one had faith of a grain of mustard seed, they really could move mountains. However, he always felt that he was unworthy, and he didn't, I don't know, just didn't have the right concept. However, later, when he was 70, I think that he did. He was baptized, and when he was 70, I think he realized he might be not too long on this earth and wanted to get right with God. And when I was 18, I got my older sister and we went together. Well, I guess she really didn't. She was not very frugal. She never had money. But anyway, I did send for my folks and had them come and supported them in their old age. And I had visions of them up there in the lumber woods. And my dad not able to earn money anymore. And I didn't know what in the world would happen to them. So anyway, they did come to Ann Arbor. And eventually my dad got a job as an elevator operator. And it was really nip and tuck to support them, and he still didn't feel that he should contribute anything to their support, and he liked to play cards. He had things. So, but I did get him to come around to contribute to their support, and so he got to be quite a responsible person in his older years. He's used to.
So you were a mother to your father.
Right, he used to. Well, really, one time, my older sister and I would take turns buying groceries, and when it was her turn, boy, I always end up in debt when I took over. I always bought the groceries at a neighborhood grocery store and charged them, and So, but anyway, when it was my time to take over, well, I went and 5 o'clock in the morning, I went through my dad's pockets and took money out to pay the grocery bill. Oh, he was terribly upset. Walked up and down. He said he needed that for cushion, you know, when he... But anyway, I didn't relent. I kept it and paid the bills and eventually got over it. But he used to walk up and down in front of the house and say to me, Ann, I can't live with you and I can't live without you. He just, you know, but he did come around and he did turn out to kind of carry the load a little bit. And I think if Mother would have been more of a dominant sort of person, not as passive as she was, he may have been a different person. He may have been more responsible. I think that he was always looking for a place for us from the time we were born, and that was because he didn't feel that Mother was capable. I think that was the reason, because he always was looking for somebody to take us.